It's a Major Applewhite homecoming in Baton Rouge. It's a crossover edition of Locked On Sunbelt and Locked On LSU.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to Locked On Sunbelt and Locked On LSU. Dave Schultz doing the Sunbelt. We got Matt Moscona, I think outside of SEC Media Days. This is the first time we've ever done a show together. He is the host of After Further Review on ESPN 104.5. He obviously hosts Locked On LSU, and actually he has a real job as he is the program director of the said radio station as well.
Hey. Hosting the show is a real job as well, and we got a new
that's right
endeavor there with LouisianaSports.net. But Dave, it's wonderful to talk to you. We've been friends for a very long time. It is only appropriate that if we are going to do a crossover episode, especially with you in Bourbon Country, that we have a pour while we do this episode. I don't know that our Locked On folks endorse this, but I got my one ready. Proof. You've already got yours poured.
I have one ready.
Yeah. Cheers to you. Cheers to college football. Cheers to the Locked On Podcast Network. And cheers to all the wonderful people watching. So cheers. Let's go. All right. Everyone listening right now, Dave, who aren't watching us on YouTube but listening, that just was completely lost on them. But you should all go watch for that reason.
Okay, well, we won't tell them what it was. Oh, that's got a good finish. That's got a good finish. All right. So the big news
this episode, it's going to be really good by the
end. All right. So the big news out of Baton Rouge this week, unfortunately, is Harold Perkins Jr. is out with a knee injury. He is out for the season. Who is replacing him, and how big a loss is that? Because from what I saw and read, he was still struggling on the inside. I think even Brian Kelly said he was thinking about it instead of reacting to it. What's going on with LSU in the middle of the defense?
Yeah, so there's a few layers to this answer. So everybody knows Harold because as a freshman, he exploded onto the scene. Last year as a sophomore, his production, Dave, like if you go look at his stats, tackles, TFL, sacks, forced fumbles, it matched his freshman year. It's just that LSU defensively, it was literally the worst defense in the history of the program.
Right.
So a lot of the impactful plays he made just didn't matter because their defense was so bad. He'd get a sack, it'd be 3rd and 18, and they'd convert. It's just what they, it's just they were that bad. But last year and this year, Harold had expressed interest in moving inside because he wanted to play off the ball because that's how we would project as a 3-down linebacker at the next level. The problem is he's just not an off-ball linebacker. So he'd get caught up in the wash a lot. So it's odd that he just sort of became a man without a home defensively. But, he was a super athletic guy that could come off the edge. He could drop in coverage. He could play inside if you needed him to, but that wasn't clearly his strength. This is a massive deal, Dave, because even a lot of LSU fans would look at this and say, Harold wasn't really producing. I remember former LSU defensive coordinator Dave Aranda had this line when he was talking about Arden Key. And he talked about him. And Arden Key was an All-American defensive end at LSU, for those who don't remember, but set the LSU single-season sack record back in 2016. But he said he changes the math. Basically, when he's on the field, an offense has to account for him, and it tilts the numbers to one side of the field. And Harold's the same way. And any offense that broke the huddle, they had to identify where 7 was because you didn't know. Was he coming off the edge? Was he blitzing up the middle? Was he dropping in coverage? And so when you take that element out of the game, yes, it absolutely impacts what LSU is trying to do defensively.
Do we know who's replacing him?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And the answer is it really depends on who LSU is playing. Because if they're like this weekend, for example, and you'd be better suited to answer this, like, is South Alabama going to be more of a power run team? Like, are they going to try to run downhill, or are they going to spread you out and try to throw it around the yard a little bit? When LSU played South Carolina a few weeks ago, and they have a big 240-pound quarterback, and they were trying to run the ball downhill, LSU went with more of a traditional 4-3 look. And Harold was playing the will linebacker. Well, this past week against UCLA, he was spreading out. He moved more to the star role, which is sort of a hybrid safety role in the new defense. So it really depends who LSU's playing. So, like, you'd have to tell me what is South Alabama going to try to do?
Well, yeah, they're going to try to run it. You got a Fluff Bothwell, who is, among the nation's leaders in yards per carry. But you also have Gio Lopez, who didn't play against Ohio with a turf toe. The next week, he had like 1 carry, 4 yards. But he's had like 2 games where he's had almost like 500 yards of offense. And he ran for 50 yards right through the App State defense in Boone. So they may spread it out to let Gio run it is the idea. I'm not sure how many running plays he had last week, but he can get after it.
So that probably tells me LSU is going to go more 4-3. So, this week, what you'll probably see is West Weeks move to the mic. And there's 2 brothers, West and Whit Weeks. Whit is the younger brother who's probably the better NFL prospect. A little more athletic. He can play the Sam. He's very good. It's fan favorite. West is older, more of the mic, off-ball thumper in the middle. And this is probably a game where you're going to see West Weeks come back from injury. And then you've got Greg Penn, who's a veteran wearing the number 18, which is a sort of a revered thing around LSU. And then Whit. What's interesting, though, Dave, is the next guy that Brian Kelly mentioned was Xavier Atkins, who's a true freshman, who may be the guy that plays that Perkins role. He's about 6 foot 210, about the same size Perkins was as a freshman. But he's a little more athletic guy that can bend and run. So maybe he wears number 30. That may be someone worth keeping an eye on this weekend. But chances are you're going to see those veteran guys with West Weeks, Whit Weeks, and Greg Penn man the inside of that defense.
Will they try to spy on Gio just to try to keep him inside?
I don't know if they have someone to do that, man. No. So here's an example. When LSU played Alabama 2 years ago, when Perkins was a freshman, Bryce Young was a quarterback, and Harold really was the Bryce Young spy. That was the game when LSU beat Alabama in overtime in Tiger Stadium. A lot of people remember that overtime finish. Well, that game, that was Harold's job. It was just make sure Bryce Young don't run all over you, Right. So I don't know that they have that guy that can be that role. So, I mean, the short answer to, after I gave you a very long answer, is probably not. I don't think they're going to have a spy because I don't think they have anyone that fits that mold of what they'd be trying to do.
Crossover edition, Locked On Sunbelt, Locked On LSU, Dave Schultz along with Matt Moscona. All right, let's talk about offensively. This has been an interesting season for LSU. They're not quite as explosive as they have been in the recent past, especially like last year with, 3 first-round draft picks.
Yeah. They're not so anything in college football.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So anything less than that isn't going to look good. But, offensively, they've been okay. Garrett Nussmeier is the quarterback. Former Raging Cajun Kyron Lacey is now their star receiver. Usually they have the thumper with the running back. Tell us about the LSU offense.
Yeah, so it's so interesting because the offense has been really productive. Garrett Nussmeier leads the country in completions. He's second in the country in touchdown passes. He's top 15 in the country in completion percentage. Like, he has been awesome. But he replaced a guy that had literally an otherworldly historic season. So good that he won the Heisman on a 3-loss team.
Right.
We just saw him complete 91% of his passes on Monday Night Football. That he set a rookie record for completion percentage. So anything in comparison to what you were a year ago is going to be a step back when they literally led the country in total offense and scoring offense. But Garrett's been great, man. He's protected the football. And the biggest thing, Dave, offensively, what's been so interesting about how teams have played LSU, like one of the big sort of fan criticisms here has been that they haven't been able to run the ball. And it's such this weird juxtaposition because I know you lived in Louisiana for a long time. Like, for a decade, Dave, we complained about LSU stubbornly running headfirst into 8- and 9-man boxes, going Why won't you throw it? Well, now teams are loading the box against LSU, and so they're throwing it in those 7, 8, 9-man fronts. Right. Like last week against UCLA, they threw it 44 times, but Nuss threw for 350 and they put up 34 points, and it's working. They're taking what the defense is giving them. So it just looks differently Like, I don't think LSU is going to line up and run it 40 times against South Alabama, because I don't think South Alabama is going to I just don't think South Alabama is going to drop and play coverage. I think they're going to do what everybody else has done, which is say, we're going to take away the run and we're going to make you pick us apart down the field. And so far, Nuss has been really good at doing that. And I think he'll do it again this weekend.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Matt will talk to me about South Alabama. We are Locked On Sunbelt, Locked On LSU, the crossover edition. Let me tell you a little bit about FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. It was not a good week last week. After 5-1, last week was, well, less than that. Although we'll maybe take a flyer on this South Alabama.
How do you think? What do you think? What do you think? LSU against South Alabama. The line's 22.
I'm taking the points. You're going to give me that.
Yeah.
I'm taking a little flyer on the money line. That's obviously
LSU 0-4 against the spread this year. Ooh. And Vegas hasn't really figured out how to adjust the point spread value for LSU just yet. They'll figure it out eventually, but there may still be some value on the Jaguars and the points in this game.
I may or may not have tuned in to a Baton Rouge afternoon radio show that told me that LSU was going to hammer them by about 50.
South Carolina or UCLA?
UCLA. One of the ones UCLA I came up short with last week.
Yeah. Well, now that I didn't say they were winning by 50. There was a sharp who said that on my show, but I didn't. Right. I picked LSU by. I said 30. 7 to. I did not have LSU covering, by the way.
No,
I did not.
Okay. All right. I did, and I lost.
Yes, you did. FanDuel.
On a quick side note, I'm very happy that Bailey Zappi and the Patriots won last Christmas Eve, so Washington could get Jaden Daniels instead of my Patriots, who get Drake May.
Oh.
I'm never gonna let that go down on a. Yeah, Christmas Eve night. Yay, beat the Broncos. Yay.
Yay, what a win. What about the time when the Jets won, and so they ended up with Zach Wilson instead of Trevor Lawrence, although Trevor Lawrence isn't very good right now either.
Turn out that good either.
Okay, so yep. There now, is that when we get to switch, or do we toast the start of each segment?
We can toast the segment. Yeah.
Cheers.
All
Cheers.
Right.
Okay. So let me start with a massive storyline here, which is Major Applewhite coming back to Baton Rouge. So Baton Rouge Catholic High. We all know his history. Was great at Texas, played in the NFL, has coached at Bama, he's coached at Texas, he's been all over, was head coach at Houston. How has he done at South Alabama so far?
Well, from a personal standpoint, he came in like his experience had as a head coach, and a little of the Nick Saban stuff had came off on him because he was a little bit closed down as an assistant coach, whereas Kane Womack was this effusive, outgoing, we want to tell you everything, right? I mean, there's literally maybe 3 people covering South Alabama. It is not a gotcha type of deal. We're not looking for major stories. We just want to pass along any information we can get. He absolutely loosened up in the last couple of years there. And they had a 10-win season. They were very good. When he first came in, they had Jake Bentley, the former South Carolina quarterback, and he was, among the active leaders in yardage. And until he got hurt, they were looking for a bowl in Kane's first year. Then the next year they won 10 ball games with a really effective running and passing game. Carter Bradley, Gus Bradley's kid, was the quarterback. Had a very good running attack as well. And then last year, something went off the rails. I'm not exactly sure why they weren't as good as they should have been. Devin Boyson, one of the wide receivers, did get hurt. But they've been very good, right? I mean, for some reason, they got embarrassed by North Texas. And then Gio Lopez hurt himself in that ball game, didn't play against Ohio. And then they're setting records. I know it's Northwestern State, but 87 points is 87 points, right? I mean, Tennessee had a chance to put up 87 points and they didn't. And then last week they went into Boone, North Carolina, and they just massively took out App State. App State's biggest play was a half, before the half, a Hail Mary that was caught for a touchdown because he rushed 3. No one's taking that Hugh Freeze method, and we're going to let the quarterback sit back there and heave it ho. But they've got an explosive offense. Again, this Fluff Bothwell will, averages almost 10 yards a carry. I guess he's not have enough carries to be among the NCAA leaders, but otherwise he would be 3rd in the nation. He's got Jamal Pritchett, wide receiver who can return punts, very effective that way. And Gio Lopez. This is the first time with Kane, Pryor, and Major Applewhite they actually had a quarterback competition. They've brought in 2 transfers. Gio is the first recruit and left-hander, and he's pretty good. He may be better than pretty good.
Was Gio a transfer? Is Gio a transfer?
No, Gio Lopez not a transfer. He was recruited by Kane and Major Applewhite. Played a little bit last year, had to go on the road to face Troy, which wasn't fair. Balled out in the bowl game, which happened to be in Mobile when they won that one. And then actually had an awful spring game. Did not complete a pass in the spring game, so we're all concerned. And all of a sudden they put up a bunch of points against North Texas, although they did lose. So certainly he's turned the season around because this season started 0-2 and it looked really bad. And all of a sudden they've scored 135 points in the last 2 weeks.
So that really is the kind of that line of demarcation. So they lose to Ohio 27-20.
Right.
They lost to North Texas 52-38. They allowed 52 points North Texas on their home field, which is the thing that I look at. Right. I can hand wave the 87 against Northwestern State. That's an FCS school and a bad one at that.
Sure.
Look, that's a great, proud program, but they have fallen on hard times, obviously. I would say the 2 things, Dave, that stand out to me the most I'd love to ask you about. Number one is, defensively allowing 52 to North Texas. What happened there? The other is, man, to do what they did to App State and Boone got a lot of people's attention, where a lot of people here in Baton Rouge this week are going, man, LSU through a month, they're 3-1, but they have not looked good. Is this one of those hold your breath, the G5 teams coming in to maybe pull a shocking upset? So walk me through first the North Texas game when they allowed 52.
So the North Texas game got out of hand because it was close. They were winning at halftime. South Alabama was winning at halftime. And then one of the things that happened, North Texas scored 28 points in the 3rd quarter. Part of that was the punter hit his up back in the backside.
Yeah, I saw that highlight. The low light.
So
yeah.
It got out of hand. College football, unlike a basketball game, can get out of hand fast. And it spiraled out of control where they just could not get back in the ball game. Ohio, he didn't play. So it was the backup quarterback who played for South Alabama. Not only was the offense surprising against App State, it was the defense. The defense was smothering. App State was picked to win the Sun Belt East. I had them to win the Sun Belt East. Joey Aguilar was the newcomer of the year last year. Didn't win the job out of camp, but ends up, 4 or 5 plays into the season. He is the new quarterback, and he starts off with a 40-yard touchdown pass on his first play. And I'm a big believer, same coach, same quarterback these days. That's a huge deal. We see some places that is not working out very well, right? Where you got a new quarterback with the old coach, such as Florida State. It makes a difference. And so now you have the same coach, but he's moved up, and you got the same quarterback, and he's moved up. So I think the game against App State, not only was the offense good, but the defense was dominating, which I think probably shocked South Alabama fans as much as anybody.
What do you think is so I kind of laid out for you in the last segment, the LSU offense, where they've kind of struggled to just line up and run because teams have stacked the box. So they've been willing to throw it. Where would you say strength, weakness of that South Alabama defense? Like, where might LSU look to expose?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, you have the safety Jaden Voisin is back there. They may be, Ricky Fletcher he's an experienced, he played as a freshman as a corner. Basically, this is what's going to happen at Football 101. If they can they're very good up front. If they can keep Nussmeier upright and in the pocket, LSU, could, probably has more talent on the outside than South Alabama. All right. If Nussmeier's running for his life, then that's going to be an issue. So South Alabama has a very good defensive line. But again, well, thank goodness this is not a 2:30 game or an 11 o'clock game, which happened
Oh
in
my God.
Louisiana, both in Lafayette and in Baton Rouge last week. And oh my goodness,
be glad you missed that, Dave. Oh my God.
Whew, and I'm with you. Now I don't want to hear it from any of the media that is sitting in the air conditioning and enjoying the food at Tiger Stadium or in Cajun Field, complaining about where the fans, because the fans were passing out both places. Nonetheless, it's at night. It'll be a great atmosphere. I think LSU, got it. Like you said, they're going to try and throw it, and maybe that opens up the running game a little bit, kind of the reverse of what college football was, and now maybe has become, where people are throwing it to open up the running game.
Yeah, Tigers are most definitely going to have a massive talent edge. It's the perplexing thing about this team has been their inability to put together 4 full quarters. When they're good, they can be really good. I mean, they allowed 89 yards of offense in the entire second half in pitching a shutout against UCLA. But when they're not on point, they're vulnerable, and it's been slow starts for LSU. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out on Saturday night.
Do you buy that playing 4 full quarters thing when the other team is trying to stop you? I mean, I know South Alabama almost basically did it outside of one play, but I find that always very difficult and very cliche, because we always hear this as well. Well, if we do our stuff, we'll be fine. Well, the other coach says that too.
Yeah.
If we do us, we'll be fine.
I do think LSU's biggest problem has been execution. So Brian Kelly was asked in his postgame after UCLA, when in the first look, they went to half tied at 17. Keep in mind, this is a UCLA team that's not very good.
No,
they needed a walk-off field goal to beat Hawaii 16-13 and got blown out on their home field by Indiana 42-13. And they were tied at 17 in Tiger Stadium at half. And Brian Kelly was asked post-game, what did you do? What did you change? What did you do differently? And he kind of snapped and said, we didn't do anything differently. Literally, we called the same defense. They just executed the things we've called. And what's so interesting, Dave, is I think LSU has gotten to this point where they are now leaning on young players that they know are talented and have a higher ceiling. And they've realized, hey, look, our veteran guys are making mistakes, so let's just play the young guys. We'll play the young, more talented guys. We'll take our lumps. That's going to come with playing young players, but in the long term, we'll be better for it. And so it's true. When they execute, they're pretty good. When they don't, it's to steal the word Brian Kelly said in his postgame, maddening. And on defense, it's been that at times this year.
All right, let's take another time out. We'll wrap it up. We'll talk predictions when we come back, as Matt tells you about Prize Picks.
That's right. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with more than 5 million active members. It's so easy. If you've never used Prize Picks, it's really the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. This is all you do. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then you watch the winnings roll in. Like, let's say you're an NFL fan, you're looking at Caleb Williams, #1 pick of the draft. 1 Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right. If Caleb Williams gets 1 passing yard in this month, you get an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks basically of free dubs. So you don't want to miss that deal on Prize Picks, because it's gone when September ends. So make sure you take advantage of those great deals. Listen, they have so many incredible ways to play. Download the Prize Picks app today. This is how you can do it. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege. It's all one word. And you get $50 instantly when you play $5. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. You just got to play. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game.
That sounds like the Schultz offer. Lose and win money.
You'd be rich. This is for if you're listening, not watching. So Dave and I have known each other a very long time, from his time in Lafayette, my time in Baton Rouge. So I'm really and we're both whiskey fans. And I've given Dave a lot of crap over the years about at times mixing Coke with his expensive whiskey. Diet Coke, excuse me. That doesn't make it any better, Schultz. But no, it's a lot of fun to be able to do this, man. I'm glad we were able to make this happen, and even at a distance, share a pour.
I appreciate that. All right. All right. Let's wrap it up. It is a crossover edition. Lockdown Sunbelt, Lockdown LSU, Dave Schultz, Matt Moscona. All right. Let's hear your predictions. I'm probably going to go cliche and throw out a bunch of cliches. What's your prediction for this ball game?
Yeah, I'm kind of a believer in when you look at a line, you bet a trend until you lose because you're going to win a bunch and you're only going to lose once. And LSU has had trouble covering numbers. And I don't mean to make this just a betting angle, but I'll explain what I mean. I don't think that the odds makers necessarily have caught up yet on LSU struggles. And, this line, I think, opened at 21. I think it bumped up to 22. And I think that's probably, Dave, about what we're going to see. I mean, I think just looking at LSU play 4 games already this year, it's all kind of the same. They just, even offensively against UCLA this past week, and they went right down the field and scored on 6 plays. Boom. It was so impressive. UCLA gets the ball, and LSU gives up an ensuing touchdown to match the lead. And then they wound up going to the locker room tied. For whatever reason, they just haven't quite figured out how to come out fast on both sides of the ball and play complementary football. So until I see that, it's hard for me to just predict that it's going to happen. I got a 4-game sample that says it's not. So I think I got a close game for a half. And then I think LSU probably figures it out in the second half and outdistances themselves. They did the same thing against Nichols. They did the same thing, obviously, last week against UCLA. And it's probably what will happen. I mean, you'll probably be in a 1-score game at half, and I think LSU probably wins at something like 44-24. That's probably about how I would pick it.
All right. So the big thing that I've been telling Sunbelt fans all year has been it's been a year of opportunities. A lot of teams have had opportunities that have not taken advantage of them outside of Georgia State beating Vandy, right? Georgia Southern hosted Boise State, had it up by 1. They lost. Well, they actually lost only by 11, but was down by 20. I said all App State has to do when they go into Clemson is don't get steamrolled in the first few minutes. They got steamrolled in the first few minutes. 42
Maybe App State's not very good.
That could very well be the case. All right. But, it was 42-0 with 12 minutes left to go in the second quarter. And so this is about opportunity. It's, Major Applewhite's going to be able to explain what it's like to play in Tiger Stadium at night. Until you experience that, that's a whole different thing. Calling Baton Rouge, I'm not from there, but still getting chills when you hear it. Like, when don't they play that like going from the 3rd to the 4th quarter or something along those lines?
Yeah, they'll play it pregame and they'll play at various points throughout the game.
Yeah.
So
it's a great atmosphere. For the first time ever, a hurricane is not heading towards New Orleans. We're wishing everybody safe in Tallahassee. Yeah. So rain never. And we wish him all the best. Hopefully he's becoming the PA announcer's getting healthy. If South Alabama can strike first and stay in it, like you said at half, I think they have a shot at making this a game. We'll see. Didn't the Nichols running back run all over LSU? And so the second play of the second half, Colin Guggenheim ripped off a 67-yarder out of the single wing. And that's been a big problem for this team. They've allowed 3 touchdown runs of 67, 66, and 75 yards. They have the run defense is good, Dave. They just can consistently, they'll be good. And then there's the one play where everybody loses contain, the safeties are gone, and they can't tackle, and a guy rips off a long one. I mean, it's maddening, as Brian Kelly said, to watch. Right. Well, that could happen. And then maybe a secret weapon, maybe Jamal Pritchett, wide receiver and punt returner could have a special play. I'm gonna say South Alabama is gonna cover. I will take the money line because it's good odds, right? It'll be good odds if I happen to win. But I'll say LSU adds a late touchdown to make the game not as close as it appears. I'll go 38-24 with LSU with a late touchdown. And Moscona getting a little nervous what T-Bob's going to do on whiskey and wine after the game.
I'm nervous regardless of how the game goes. When I a 300-pound former offensive lineman who loves mezcal and will say anything. Yes,
Right.
I'm always a little nervous about what he'll say, regardless of how the game goes.
All right, so this was a great episode. Really appreciate it, Matt. Thanks so much, Matt Moscona for Locked On LSU, Dave Schultz for Locked On Sunbelt Crossover Edition. Appreciate you, man.
Cheers.
Whew.